Herbert Spencer once said, "The great aim of education is not knowledge, but action." To this day, a diversity of cultures coexist in Mexico. The native peoples mainly live in rural areas, although many of them began to migrate after 1940 due to industrialization, the crisis in the countryside, and extreme poverty. Over time, they began to arrive in medium-sized cities because there were no longer frequent job opportunities in the main metropolises. Such a context frames this presentation on a project carried out in León, a city originally built by settlers and which doesn't have an indigenous past, but is currently the city with the largest indigenous population in the state of Guanajuato. The entire population is migrant, and so is usually invisibilized or discriminated against because of its origin. Against this background, Oliverio Lopez founded the Intercultural Orchestra and Choir of León in 2017, a community group that uses music as a tool for linguistic revitalization and multicultural coexistence, as well as for the recognition of composers, artists and performers who were, or are, discriminated against, excluded or censored from the music scene in Mexico. The project seeks to raise awareness of these migrant populations in the city. Internally, it seeks to strengthen the identity and use of indigenous languages, and externally, to generate an intercultural bridge with the public through music, in order to reduce ignorance of otherness and thus the effects of ethnic discrimination.
Piali, donde toca Roberto Hernández Mesa, que estudia no pa Coro, na nikimashia kunemi, plen existe wan ukishpik wan sigwapik plen primero wan segundo grado.
Nene me toca Carolina, tlen toca igual oni participaron que se voluntaria para vuelta en Tlacuicas igual tlen toca igual osequicocone neje que on Tlacuicaya que oni kimpaleguaya igual o techualtitisque igual te Juan ya cual o se igual.
Y el ingeniero Francisco Morales Basilio y Comacho Ana Pushka. He nilasen ka alles mecha ki mo wen mecha na sa pichun no kedi ngo na ngalin ka na lizbet ka menda rumbash kumata sa pichun mo kumat ke pen ka hi huchi anji kule nde pambien lan en mech holen mo gindiram injetirisha.
The background to the project began in 2012 in areas of Jalisco, Michoacán and Puebla, where there was a long-standing native population. These activities allowed us to observe the tremendous lack of support for indigenous languages, as well as the marginalization and invisibility that these cultures have outside of the tourist sphere. During this period, 2 choirs were formed, field recordings were made in the communities, and the cosmovision of the cultures was investigated. In 2017, the project began in earnest in León, Guanajuato, with both migrants and university students from the National Autonomous University of Mexico. The initiative was supported by Gonzalo Soltero, Alicia Escobar, Claudia Chivici, and Miguel Santos. The main idea behind the founding of this group was to develop social recognition and appreciation of the multicultural presence in the city. The first stage of the project turned out to be an interesting laboratory in which to observe the intercultural interactions between different participants.
Siempre que culturas les equino que se equino que más evatla.
Memichan image wanda sian he huchit in shiwak pirian kame wanda iman en huchit pirian have mata wanda kingo hukar khalik se sashish ka memichan wanda no imam notion se sashish mush per ho mawar de marsharan se teman kani kuka palarantar hapkash mama raj wanda kucha tant inde cheringa tant mata ruche.
The project was developed through workshops comprising 2 weekly sessions, whose initial stage ran from 2017 to mid-2018. The sessions were held with the children in the mornings and with the university students in the afternoons. A dress rehearsal was held on the weekend. Each session lasted 2 hours. The sessions were conducted in Spanish, but the language of the participants was used on a daily basis for specific directions and interactions. At least once a month, one rehearsal was conducted in an indigenous language. The methodology used was based on the 2004 book Music and Interculturality by Joseph Siancope and Olga Viales, which contains activities whose purpose is to be the vehicle for deep interpersonal communication. This methodology was used to create fun and learning moments, awareness of the self and others, as well as recognition and appreciation of other cultures, especially through the use of language. We worked with Ada Pucheta Echenique, an Argentinian singer and child psychologist. From this book we implemented 20 ludic activities. We then assembled a repertoire including the traditional pieces obtained in 2012, pieces from the children's communities of origin, and compositions in the various indigenous languages. This phase of the project sought cooperation and unification between participants to be, in addition to a source of enjoyment, a means of communication and non-verbal knowledge with others and with oneself. In addition to these sessions, the children received language and culture classes with native speaker teachers to reinforce the linguistic and cultural aspects. The main difficulty was that these children had to prioritise paid work in order to cover their basic needs and those of their families. As such, the weekend rehearsals were poorly attended by the children.
Onechpakti porque onquimitan oxequicocone igual oxequilenguas. Onechpakti que pues tengo más o se tequipanos en equipo igual tlen toca que sellas y panse se coro ajan sellayonichi igual en cato traje típico.
On Sunday, July the 15th, 2018, the closing concert was held at the Manuel Doblado Theatre in León, Guanajuato, where 4 of the children of the group were able to participate in community choirs. The university group opened this concert, performing with an orchestral ensemble. After this concert, the group continued, but the school where the children were studying decided not to continue the project. In spite of this, the children were monitored, and even in 2020, the participants remember this workshop with affection and as an experience that built their identity. The project was a process of mediation and recognition of ongoing epistemological needs. It strengthened intercultural values such as respect and peace, as well as cultural valorization, starting from language. As such, it was necessary to accompany the choir sessions with language and culture classes, since the choir functioned as a space for linguistic development, a place where people knew that they would socialise in the language. At the end of the workshops, each child who participated was interviewed and became aware of the value of multilingualism and how their culture is an important part of this world. They recognised that they can be discriminated against for being different. However, they also mentioned that discriminators should be taught that being different is not a bad thing. Music as a tool not only served as a means of expression, but also as a way to enjoy identity, culture, the joy of being different.
Nika se huellas tepe que mansi tojuante tipinawa que nika se te camatise pampa se yo más igualme teshita ashkueli teshita pampa te camatinawa huasquino tojuante
Antes dejamos ni querían ni tlapoguas porque neje tlen toca onikmatiaya que canajitlas nechfilis que jamo cualtzi. Entonces dejamos ni querían ni tlapoguas, pero nechfaltiti que quito ni cancaxquito ni canca, entonces on walashili igual no nechfalpacti ni tlapoguas en nada.
The group continues to function, and over the years creativity has been recognised as an important tool to achieve its objectives, especially for valuing and applying linguistic knowledge. For this reason, we're building a future in which we can motivate people to write music from their heritage languages. We would like to strengthen the children who belong to indigenous communities through scholarships, which would provide economic support and the opportunity to participate in music classes instead of activities related to child labour. To be able to generate links between different orchestral groups that have a similar vision to perform and disseminate their works is an additional goal. We aim to strengthen and value each musical heritage by approaching research from a local perspective, even down to the neighbourhood level, and with it the development of the sound identity of each space. This way we could publish professional recordings and conduct music projects that value traditional music from its creators, and, in so doing, to make networks between different cultures. This year, we want to set up a website with access to the lost or forgotten scores that have been recovered. There's still a long way to go, but structure, enthusiasm, and the commitment of those involved, both now and in the future, will enable us to move forward.
Sitishin kakani sitishin ko escuchi wate chungo también bien pale wandan hopper no me wandashen esquimech pide cual guaratin ancopin como winga perantan no me ni man bashen que solamente chis wandashen como chiwale tengo haces para poder wandar ka endena beshan como no jurakutat pero no me wandas que más pide cual guaratin ancopin
to na que se clamastique Nihneki más apoyo por parte de diferentes instituciones. Mati difundiroca ni tunahuatlactos. Mati huellas tepes, kishmatica, ni pani ciudad, un camiyaki culturas, un miyaki masehuasmi, len kipiaya sello cosmovisión.